Before you scroll away, let me tell you something uncomfortable. The habits you're proud of right now might be the very reason your life feels stuck. Not because you're lazy, not because you're incapable, but because no one ever told you what actually needs to be fixed first. You've been taught to chase motivation, discipline, confidence, success. You've been told to wake up earlier, hustle harder, think positive, push through. And yet deep down you still feel restless, reactive, easily drained, like you're always doing something, but rarely moving forward. Here's the truth most people won't say out loud. If you don't fix the way you react, the way you speak to yourself, and the way you rush decisions, 2026 will look exactly like every year before it, just with new excuses. This video isn't here to hype you up. It's here to wake you up. Because the real problem isn't your lack of effort. It's the invisible habits running your mind when no one is watching. The emotional reflexes you think are just how you are. The inner voice you mistake for honesty. The urgency you confuse with ambition. By the end of this video, you won't just feel motivated, you'll feel exposed. You'll recognize patterns you can't unsee. You'll understand why intelligent, hardworking people still sabotage themselves, and how to stop doing it. If you're tired of repeating the same cycles, if you're ready to stop reacting and start leading your life, stay with me. Because once you hear this, there's no going back. Before we talk about discipline, ambition, confidence, or success, we have to talk about something far more fundamental, something so basic that most people overlook it entirely: the way you react. Not what you feel, not what happens to you, but how quickly you move from emotion to action. This is where most lives quietly fall apart. People assume their biggest problems come from external circumstances, from difficult people, unfair situations, stress, pressure, or lack of opportunity. But if you look closely, what actually damages their life is not the event itself. It's the unexamined reaction to the event, the impulsive message sent in anger, the defensive tone that escalates conflict, the emotional withdrawal that ruins connection, the rash decision made under pressure that cannot be undone. Reaction feels natural, it feels honest, it feels human. But reacting is not the same as responding. A reaction is automatic. A response is intentional. And the difference between the two is the difference between being ruled by your emotions and being guided by your values. Most people live in a state of constant emotional reflex. Something triggers them and they move instantly. They speak without thinking. They decide without reflecting. They assume without verifying. And then they spend months, sometimes years, dealing with the consequences of a moment they never pause to question. This is why intelligence alone does not create a good life, because intelligence without emotional regulation only makes your reactions more sophisticated, not wiser. Here's the uncomfortable truth. If someone can provoke you easily, they control you. If a comment, a delay, a tone, or a look can hijack your state of mind, then your power is external, not internal. And the world is full of people who will unconsciously, and sometimes deliberately, test that power. Not because they are evil, but because human beings are reactive creatures by default. The strongest individuals are not those who suppress emotion. Suppression always leaks. It shows up as resentment, burnout, or passive aggression. Strength comes from observing emotion without obeying it, feeling anger without becoming it, feeling fear without letting it decide, feeling hurt without immediately trying to defend your ego. Psychologically, this is where maturity begins. When you realize that emotions are signals, not commands. They are information, not instructions. Anger might be telling you a boundary was crossed. Fear might be telling you something matters. But neither emotion tells you what to do next. That part is your responsibility. When you react instantly, you collapse time. You eliminate reflection. You remove choice. You trade long-term self-respect for short-term emotional relief, and that trade is almost always expensive. Philosophically, this comes down to one question. Are you living from impulse or are you living from principle? Impulse says, I feel, therefore I act. Principle says, I feel, therefore I pause. That pause is not empty, it is filled with judgment, values, and foresight. It is where you ask, if I act this way, who do I become? Not just today but over time. People often say they want peace, but their reactions are violent. Not always outwardly violent, but internally chaotic. They want clarity, but they live in constant urgency. They want respect, but they give their power away every time they lose control. And then they wonder why their life feels unstable. A reactive mind cannot build a stable future. it can only survive the present. What makes this especially dangerous is that reactivity feels justified. You can always explain why you reacted. You can always find a reason. But justification is not the same as wisdom. Wisdom asks not, was I right to feel this, but, was this the best way to respond? When you slow down your reactions, something remarkable happens. You begin to see patterns. You notice that the same situations trigger the same emotions. The same types of people provoke the same responses. And instead of feeling like life is attacking you randomly, you start to recognize your own conditioning. That awareness alone weakens the trigger. This is why calm people appear powerful, not because they care less, but because they are less hijacked. Their nervous system is not constantly firing alarms. They can think while others are panicking. They can listen while others are defending. They can choose while others are rushing. In relationships, this is everything. Most conflicts are not caused by deep incompatibility, they are caused by two reactive nervous systems colliding. One person reacts, the other escalates, and suddenly the original issue is buried under tone, ego, and hurt. The person who can slow the interaction down holds the real power. Not dominance, but influence. In leadership, the same rule applies. People do not trust those who react unpredictably. They trust those who are steady, who don't let pressure dictate their behavior, who don't let emotion override judgment. Stability creates safety, and safety creates followership. Even internally, your self-image is shaped by how you react to your own mistakes. If every error leads to self-attack, shame, or panic, your mind learns that growth is dangerous. But if mistakes are met with calm correction, learning accelerates. Reaction determines whether failure becomes feedback or trauma. Fixing reactivity does not mean becoming slow or passive. It means becoming precise. It means choosing the right response instead of the fastest one. It means understanding that speed without direction is chaos. And this is why this habit must be fixed first, because every other habit depends on it. Discipline collapses under emotional reactivity. Confidence erodes when you cannot control your responses. Focus disappears when your attention is constantly pulled by triggers. The pause is not optional. It is foundational. If you can master the space between stimulus and response, you gain something most people never experience: agency. The sense that your life is not just happening to you, but being shaped by you. So the question is simple but not easy. The next time you feel the urge to react, will you obey it, or will you observe it? Will you let emotion drive, or will you take the wheel? Because the future does not belong to the loudest, the fastest, or the most reactive. It belongs to the person who can feel deeply, pause deliberately, and choose wisely. Once you begin to slow your reactions, something else becomes impossible to ignore. The voice that fills the silence, the one you live with every day, the one that speaks before anyone else does and long after the world goes quiet, your inner voice. And this is where most people unknowingly sabotage themselves, even when they think they're working on self-improvement. People talk about motivation as if it's the missing ingredient, as if they just need to push themselves harder, hype themselves louder, demand more from themselves. But motivation without regulation is just pressure, and pressure, when applied internally, does not create growth. It creates anxiety. Listen closely to how you speak to yourself when things go wrong. Not the words you say out loud, but the tone underneath them. Is it rushed? Is it harsh? Is it disappointed? Is it panicked? That tone is training your nervous system every single day. And your nervous system does not respond to logic, it responds to safety. This is the part people don't like to hear. You cannot build a focused, disciplined, confident life while your inner environment feels hostile. If your mind feels like a courtroom where you are constantly on trial, your system will always be in defense mode. And a mind in defense mode does not take risks, does not sustain effort, does not think creatively. It survives, and survival is not the same as living well. High-functioning people are not those who constantly criticize themselves into action. They are people who have learned how to direct themselves calmly. When something fails, they do not immediately ask, "What is wrong with me?" They ask, "What information is this giving me?" That shift alone changes everything. Because the first question attacks identity, the second improves behavior. Psychologically, your inner voice becomes your internal authority. If it is unpredictable, aggressive, or shaming, your mind learns that effort leads to pain, so it resists. Procrastination is not laziness, it is often self-protection, a response to an internal environment that feels unsafe. This is why people who are intelligent, capable, and ambitious still struggle to execute consistently. Their goals are clear, but their inner relationship is broken. They try to dominate themselves instead of lead themselves. But leadership, whether internal or external, is built on trust, and trust cannot exist where there is constant threat. There is also a philosophical mistake many people make. They believe that being hard on themselves is a form of honesty, that kindness equals complacency, that if they soften their inner voice, they will lose their edge. But discipline does not come from cruelty, it comes from clarity. Think about how you guide someone you respect. You are firm but not humiliating, you are honest, but not demeaning, you correct behavior without attacking character. That is the tone of effective self-direction as well. The nervous system responds best to consistency. When your inner voice is steady, your attention stabilizes. When your attention stabilizes,